This is Crash Canon. I'm Chris, and I have a guest today. You want to tell everybody who you are?
Hi, everybody. I'm Amber Rose, the religious hippie. It's great to see you all. Hopefully, you guys will enjoy our little chit chat. But I have a ministry called the Religious Hippie, and it's dedicated towards bringing Catholics back to the faith who have fallen away, like I once was. And yeah, that's the PowerPoint presentation.
And if I remember correctly, some of your journey started with questions about a rosary post you had on maybe your TikTok or something.
Yeah, so I started so when I came back into my faith, I didn't have anybody my age who was doing this. Like now it's, the Catholic world is saturated with Catholic influencers, content creators, etc., and it's fabulous. Like it's phenomenal. But before COVID, before 2020, there really wasn't anyone outside of Catholic Answers, Ascension Presents, and maybe a handful of people here or there who did it years ago but then fell off. So for me, I didn't have anyone my age telling me, "Oh, this is how you do Catholicism. Like this is how
Right.
I
Yeah.
I fell away or something." I didn't find anyone. I have great friends, and now that I know them, like Trent Horn and Jimmy Aiken and all those great people, but I just was like, where's the girls? Where's the young men who are talking about their lives and their journeys and with Christ? And I didn't find them. So I felt this pull on my heart to maybe be that person for other people and also learn about my faith as I do that. And it worked out perfectly. And now here we are, 5 years later.
Yeah, I think about the same time you did that. That was when I started like a gaming podcast I used to do with my buddy Will, but that has pretty much ended altogether at this point. He actually said he likes it better that I do this podcast. I don't know if it's because he doesn't want to do podcasting anymore, or if it's because he thinks I do a good job. I'm gonna go with the second one because that makes me feel better. But
Yeah. Yeah, Avi. Makes sense
so
to me.
I will say this: definitely was not when you kind of joined the Catholic space online a lot of women doing what you do.
Mm.
That is for sure. Definitely did not see very many women doing that. One of the first videos I saw of yours, actually, believe it or not, maybe this is pretty obvious because it's one of your most popular videos, was attending Latin Mass, like what to do when you go the first time. I think that
Yeah.
is like maybe one, two, or three on your popular videos. Is that
Yeah, I think
accurate?
it's still the first one. It's like the most popular.
So like it's really good for the algorithm for your channel, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, but what inspired you to do that video?
So it's a, we're going to be here for a hot minute, so grab a drink. I'll try to sum it up. When I reverted back into my faith, I reverted at a Novus Ordo parish that I grew up going to, but I was also raised in the traditional Latin Mass. So I had like the best of both worlds. I, went to catechism class with both churches. So I got a lot of catechism. But when I went back to the Novus Ordo parish, I was a part of a young adult group there, and there were just a lot of things that happened that never should have happened. First of all, there was a trans. Uh, so originally, there was a man pretending to be a woman,
Okay.
and he was allowed to sleep in the women's cabin on the women's side of the bedroom,
Oh
and
boy.
shower with the women, obviously with swimsuits on and everything. But I had no idea that this person was originally male, and so I felt very deceived and very violated in a way without really even being violated at all. Like he was very sweet. He never did anything, but it was just the fact that I felt so lied to and that this person was allowed to be in my space. And we see that a lot more today. But back then it was a little bit less common. And then after that, I went with them to meditate with monks, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, Catholic monks. I'm a newbie Catholic here. I don't really know much at all. Buddhist monks, Buddhist
Oh,
monks." So
interesting.
as an outing, they would go once a year to meditate with this Buddhist monk, and dude, the amount of just spiritual warfare in that moment, I just felt so attacked, and just constantly saying St. Michael prayers and everything. And on our way back, one of the people in the group asked me, they were just like, "Oh, well, what'd you think? Like, isn't it so cool?" And I'm like, "No." I was like, that's spiritually dangerous. And I'm a baby Catholic. These are people who have never left the Catholic Church. But I'm a baby Catholic. I just came back. I knew it was wrong. Like there were convictions there. I knew that it was wrong to participate in a different religion
Right.
and in that way. And I was just like, I knew a lot about Buddhism because I was kind of into like that spirituality kind of crystals and stuff and meditation before I reverted. And I knew that after I reverted, all demonic, of course.
You
Um,
got rid of most of that stuff, I imagine. Yeah.
Yes, I was just like, "Purge it, I'm done, thank you." And so going back into that world was just, like, so shocking. It was like a culture shock almost because I was like, "We're Catholic, like, isn't the whole point of that is to escape things like this?"
Right.
And so those 2 things then led up to like, there were, like, 3 main things that broke the camel's back, and the 3rd thing was after mass one day, we were all sitting around in a circle in the living room, and the priest came in wearing the most dad outfit I had ever seen in my life. Like, you know, cat like calf socks pulled all the
Oh,
way up with like cut off khakis and like a short sleeve. You know what I'm talking about.
yes, I know what you're talking about. Sure.
He did not look like, the father that the priest. He did not look like a priest. But he came in and he sat down and he started with, "All right, kids, what do you guys want to change about the Catholic Church?" And I was like, "No, father, no. What are you
What are we
doing?
doing
Like,
here?
what are we doing?" And the 3 main things that they wanted to quote unquote change were women priests. They wanted women priests. They wanted condoms passed out after mass for whatever reason. That was a thing. And
Where are people
then
going right after mass? Isn't it usually like, are you talking Saturday nights or Sunday mornings? Because we got a lot of questions either way.
I'm gonna be like, why is that even? I'm sorry, like the Catholic Church is not a hospital. I mean,
Right.
it is a hospital, but it's not like,
Not that kind
huh?
of hospital.
No, not like that. And, there was another thing that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. I think it had something to do with abortion contraception, and they wanted,
Oh,
like, contraceptions and stuff, which kinda ties in with the thing, but I thought there was another thing, but I can't remember it. So all of that night, literally on the couch next to the youth leader, I'm just Googling, like, traditional parishes near me, and my home parish popped up, which also happened to be the parish I attended as a child. And so I was just like going there. They had a young adult group, met my best friend there, and then I met my husband there a few years later. And so that's kind of what sparked it was just, and it's better now. The church is better now. They have new leadership. They have a new priest in there. So it's not the same as it was before, but um I was just so flabbergasted. And even as again, a baby Catholic, I knew it was wrong. Like I knew that something here wasn't right, and I was seeking for something that felt more serious, I guess.
yeah. I attend a mix of traditional and Novus Ordo, but it's probably more Novus Ordo side, believe it or
Mhm.
not. I prefer more of the traditional liturgy. I definitely do, but with 5 kids, it's a little bit more difficult to sit through some of the longer TLMs. But either way, that's not why we don't go to the TLM. There's a lot longer story to that, which we don't need to get into here. But most of the
We
priests in
could,
my area
but
they wear cassocks. So if that tells you anything, even the
that's
Novus Ordo
awesome.
priests, they're all wearing cassocks.
That's awesome.
So I think the oldest priest of the churches we attend is in his 50s. So they're all younger priests. Except,
That's
well,
awesome.
the further out into the periphery you get, the older some of the priests get. But we mainly stick to the ones that I was just talking about. And they all
That's
wear
awesome, though.
cassocks, which, yeah. I mean, I like seeing priests wearing cassocks. It makes them look more priestly, personally.
Yeah. You dress for your job, you know?
Right, right, exactly, exactly.
Job's being a
Like this
priest.
isn't
What do you
how I
guys gonna
dress to
do?
go to my job. I dress like this for podcasting. Different clothings for different things you do, right? Is that the idea?
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe that would be a good transition to kind of explain your thought process on the mass fits, if you wanted to.
Ah, the oh so controversial mass fits for some reason. I uh I just where do we begin? For starters, I should probably have to preface with the mass fits are for the girlies. I've always tried to preface it that way, and I would have thought it was obvious by the fact that, you know, I'm trying to support the girlies and a mass fit is supposed to be inspiration for what you could wear to mass, because I get tons of emails and tons of DMs and tons of comments from girls asking me, what do I wear to mass? Is this appropriate? Do I wear this? Do I wear that? Can I? And so through this, I am able to show them, like, hey, here's an idea of what you could wear to mass. It could be simple, it could be really fancy, it could be high heels, it could be flats, it could be so many different things. But in that way, giving them the confidence to be able to, um, express themselves in their own mass outfits, and to go to mass confidently, knowing that modesty and your mass outfits don't need to look like a potato sack. You don't have to look homeless. You don't have to
Right. Yeah.
worry about hiding your figure. I don't think that stuff is healthy. I feel like that's actually very degrading towards women when we try to just completely cover them up. There's beauty, and that's beautiful. And unfortunately, I do believe there is a huge pornography issue where a lot of men and some women cannot view someone who's beautiful without also viewing it as pornographic. And I'm not saying that these people specifically are addicted to pornography, but I'm saying that it's so saturated in our culture that they cannot see a beautiful person, whether that's myself or another one of my girlies who does a mass fit or whatever. They just can't separate the two. They can't see beauty for what it is and be like, oh, she's really beautiful. Instead, it has to be, oh, this is sexual, like this is bad, like da da da. It's like, no, they're separated, and it's very interesting to see the dynamics that happen online because of it. And I think a lot of people think that for some reason it's not that it doesn't bother me, because I think it does, just insofar as I feel bad. I feel like they're completely missing the point of this, or there are some people who just completely take it out of context. And I just feel bad that they're kind of stuck in that mindset in that way.
So I guess it would shorten, like a short thing would be like, you're not looking for compliments from men with these pictures
No,
in any way,
absolutely
shape, or
not.
form. And I think that's something that is missing in the dialogue online because, and I have a little theory on this.
Hmm.
Before the age of the internet, when you went home, the only people you saw were your family, right?
True.
And so like the only person viewing whatever it is was either family or friends or inner circles. Everything is so public these days. There's this discourse that just hasn't figured itself out yet with these types of things.
Yeah.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, I completely agree. And I think there's also just, we've been online for so long that we've also just lost respect for each other,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. And I think that's really sad. It's very degrading. Um, and there's too many people that just feel as though they have, immunity because they're anonymous, or they're not anonymous, but they just don't really care. And I do worry that people don't know how to, they've lost the art of arguing, but like respectfully.
Hmm.
Whenever I say arguing, people think I mean like, oh my gosh, you suck. And I don't get, calling each other's name. What
That's
we see on
not
X
healthy.
usually.
That's not healthy dialogue anyways. Like having
No.
that conversation in that way is not going to lead to anybody changing their minds. It's just going to lead to everybody digging their heels in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's unfortunately what seems to happen, is it's like everybody has this, pride grip on them when they go on X, like this wrath that just comes out on X where they can't contain their opinion. They have to share their opinion. They have to have a take on this. It has to be a hot take. And there are plenty of things that I scroll past that I could easily comment on, but I don't, because I like to protect my peace. And it's not
Yeah.
worth getting involved. And I have a life. I Not that these people don't have lives, but I genuinely do have a life. I have a husband I'm taking care of. We're moving. I'm taking care of my father who has cancer. I'm, doing a bunch of stuff, and I don't have time for petty internet drama that really only lasts for a day. And to lose your peace over that, it's very sad to see people who are chronically on X or any other social media platform lose their peace, and almost some lose their soul online over things that eternally do not matter. And I try to really make that obvious. Sometimes I make these posts where I say, Catholics, you represent Jesus Christ in the church. Make sure you are charitable with those you interact with, because you might be the only person that is showing them Christ. And we need to act like we're representing the church. So, I just feel like it's one of those things that has gotten out of control on social media, and we need to check ourselves, all of us, myself
Mhm.
included. My husband keeps me very accountable, which is awesome.
Yeah, my wife tries to keep me accountable as well. She does as good of a job as she can, but sometimes the hot takes they come out, right? I mean, that's just how
Yeah,
it goes.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but we got 5 kids together, so it's a very good relationship between me and my wife. And I think it's weird when people are terminally online, because how are you going to form relationships with people in real life if you are just consistently online?
Yeah. And what's the craziest, Chris, the craziest thing too is recently my husband and I, we went to California for YLS, which is Young Leadership Summit with live action. And a bunch of my online creator friends were there. The Iron Inquisitor, Franco, obviously, a bunch of people. Lila was there, of course, as well. And even though there was definitely some in drama, I guess, for some of the people, or like they had some stuff online, when we were all together, and we were face to face, we formed real connections. We formed real bonds. And yeah, we did have to do content and all that stuff, because that was what was expected of us for being able to just go there. And so that was great. And yes, Mr. Limpanto, you were there, and we got to meet everybody, including Sips with Sarah and a lot of other people. But the main thing is that as soon as you removed the social media, the phone aspect, that wall, everybody was like best friends. Like everybody got along, and even if they weren't exactly like, oh, I love this person or whatever, they were still very respectful, and um still very friendly to each other. And I'm just like, we're losing like on we're dehumanizing ourselves online, and it's becoming a really big problem where people feel comfortable doxing other people, and slandering other people, and creating false testimony against them, and they don't
Yeah.
realize the actual danger that they're putting on their soul. And so it's scary to me when people do that, not because I'm offended, but because I know that that's wrong, and I know that that's a mortal sin or whatever, because it's a slander or this or that, especially when it comes to me and people say things, and I'm just like, for the sake of your own soul, please go to confession. Like, don't worry about me. I'm fine. This comes with having an online platform. I'm fine. But for the sake of your own soul, please go to confession, because I'm more worried about that than anything else.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I mean, anytime you post something online, there's almost like this instant, like, oh, should I have said that or shouldn't I have said that? Like, I
Mhm.
don't know if everybody gets this way, but when I post stuff, sometimes I'll leave things in draft and I'm like, okay, I'll sit on this for a little bit.
I do that
And
too.
then later in the day, okay, I think this is okay to post. I'm gonna post it now, that kind of a thing. And I do have a good relationship with the priest that we see consistently.
Mhm.
So if I'm really concerned about something, I'll message him and be like, "Hey, what do you think?" And
I do that too.
sometimes he's like, "Yeah, go ahead," or another times it's like, "I don't really have time right now, so why don't we talk about this later?"
Priests are
So
busy. Priests are
yeah, they
busy.
are very busy, and sometimes I think it's easy to forget just how busy priests are in general.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm like,
but
can't you
yeah,
just read my tweet real fast, Father? Come on. And he's got like a whole line of confession.
right, yeah, it's like we're not gonna go through all of your tweets. Just what are the worst ones? Confess those.
Just be like, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you remember what exactly transpired that led to this podcast? Do you remember what the tweet was?
No. Was it controversial? Was it Mike
It
Adult
was,
one?
yes, it was about the kid adult conversation. Yeah, that was our
Sorry, guy.
original conversation. Because I agreed with like the essence of what you were saying, but there was like a lot like this tension with the comments that were replying to it, like a pretty
Yeah.
strong tension. And I think what you were trying to say essentially was like obsessions that take over the sole focus of your life, aside from your faith,
Mhm.
can be detrimental to a relationship.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. And that's
I'm assuming
exactly
you
what
have
I
some
tried to
experience with this, correct?
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, tons of experience, unfortunately. And not just that, but not only my own, but also through my closest girlfriends, and seeing the guys that they've dated and knowing what they've gone through with adults. I mean, one of my longest relationships with a adult, and it took a huge toll on our relationship because it was, oh, I have to take this weekend to go airsofting. Oh, I have to take this weekend to go nerfing with my buddies. Oh, I have to take this weekend and work on this remote control car that I'm doing. Oh, sorry, I can't take you on a date. I spent all of our date money on getting new remote control car parts. Or my friends who wanted to go on, she went on a couple dates with this one guy at a Catholic university, and she found out that he cosplayed Lord of the Rings, and that he basically, what he did was he canceled their date in order to go cosplay.
Oh,
um
jeez.
she was just like, oh, I'm free this day and stuff. He's like, great. He's just like, oh wait, actually I'm cosplaying with my buddies at my house, so I can't do that. So maybe not canceling, but it's like the same thing. It's like if it's getting in the way of your vocation, you know what I mean? You can cosplay whenever, okay? But getting to know someone who could potentially be your future wife, like that, you just lost an opportunity there, buddy. Like, you know what I mean? And so people got really upset with me saying that I don't think it's appropriate for grown men to be obsessed with Legos. Keyword obsessed.
Oh,
Connor
I
has,
agree that
yeah.
being an obsession can get in the way of a relationship. Just
Mhm.
flat out. I mean, really, an obsession should be looked at more like an idol,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
if your shelves are full of stuff that you take ahead of like your family members, for example, like just say I went to like a midnight release at a GameStop. I think most people would say an adult with 5 kids should not be going to a GameStop at midnight to go and get a video game.
Can't
Probably
believe you.
not.
Can't believe that.
I have never actually done that, believe it or not, but I know people that have. So I've gone out of my way to get games on eBay back when I was really into like the gaming, and my wife and I had a bunch of conversations about maybe I need to step back a little bit. But it's nice to have a partner in your life who can recognize that about you, have conversations, and help you to step away from something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I think a lot of it too is that, you know, there's also a difference between being able to, I guess, tolerate something, because then if the woman, I can only speak from my experience. If the woman can tolerate the obsession or whatever, then it's probably not that bad of an obsession. But I mean,
Right.
how many times have you scrolled through TikTok and you're like, he's been playing video games for 7 hours and I come in to give him a kiss goodnight, or I fall asleep and he's not in bed next to me because he fell asleep in his gaming chair. Like, I've come across so many TikToks like that where I'm just like, yeah, it's supposed to be funny or whatever, but it's a stereotype for a reason,
Yeah,
where
it
it's like
definitely
these
has
guys.
become that way.
Yes, and unfortunately, a lot of the times, oh, what's a kidult? A kidult is just a kid. Sorry, it's an adult who kind of acts like a kid and is obsessed about childish things. Think of like a Disney adult. Um, but the thing is that I don't care. And I've said this multiple times in live streams and stuff like that, but people always take me out of context. Is that I always say, I don't care if you have a hobby. I don't care if you like Pokemon. I don't care if you like Lego. I don't care if you like any hobby. Any hobby can become obsessive and can become bad. You can have hiking as a hobby, but then use it to escape your family and your responsibilities. You can have literally anything as a hobby and it can be turned into something bad if you're not careful about it. An idol, like you were saying, Chris. And I think it's so important to remember that, our first and foremost responsibility is to God and our
Right.
vocation, whatever that might be. And if we are putting things, oh, this ties in with escapism as well.
Yeah,
Um,
escapism can be a big problem.
I was there as a teenager. There was a lot of craziness that caused me to do this, but I would be able to put myself in TV shows and in movies, so I could actually like zone out and physically put myself in the movie as if I was actually there. It's a cool party trick. Nobody else could see it, obviously. But I found out that that was probably a coping mechanism and was not healthy. So I stopped doing that. But it's about escapism. People don't want reality. Reality kind of sucks, and unfortunately that seems to be the way that they escape responsibilities and adulting and all that stuff is through basically these idols that they create for themselves, whether that's Disney or Pokemon or whatever.
Yeah, and people do, I think, try to find themselves in characters on TV. Not necessarily put themselves in the show, like what you're
Mhm.
talking about, but like I would always relate to characters in shows, like for example, JD on Scrubs, hopeless
Yep.
romantic guy or whatever, or like Ted Mosby, people would relate to him.
Mhm.
These various characters, like especially for men who are used to being like rejected, which I had a lot of rejection growing up. Um, these characters are very relatable, but then you think that's real life, and it's not real
Yeah.
life. It's just not. And I think that's an important lesson, especially for young men getting to dating and marriage age, is Hollywood's not real life. And the obsessions can be a detriment to your ability to date or to get to know somebody that you might want to be married to.
Yeah, exactly. And for me personally, like, and I've said this too, personal opinion, okay? I'm not forcing it on anybody. You can have a completely different one, but as a woman, I do not find it attractive when men are into childish things like Lego and Pokemon. I'm not saying you can't be. I'm just saying for me personally, and for a lot of my girlfriends, in general, it's not attractive. And I'm not saying that you can't do that stuff. Nowhere am I saying that. I am just voicing my opinion, saying that it's just not very attractive to certain women. You can definitely find women out there like that who are really into that stuff just as much as you are. And, I have friends and couples like that, and I think that's great. But for a lot of women, in general, being like hyper fixated on certain things that are specifically childish, like Nerf or things like that, can be a turnoff. And again, I'm not saying that you can't do those things. That is just a personal opinion. And you can say,
And I
oh,
would
I don't
expect
agree.
most men, when their kids get to the age where they play Nerf, to
Hmm.
hide behind the couch and Nerf the crap out of the
Yeah,
kids. Because
100%
that is 100% appropriate to do.
when you
And
have kids.
yeah, exactly. Like that's the thing people don't, I think about is the longer you spend obsessing over kid things as an adult and not having your own children, the longer you prolong that, the older you'll be when your kids are ready to embrace that. So like
Yeah, that's really
my wife
good.
and I had kids very young. So like my oldest is going to be 8 in May, and we have it goes down the line from there. So like my kids are just getting into like the Nerf guns, the Legos, and all that stuff. And it's not like I'm specifically trying to play Legos, but when my kids are doing it, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that with them for a little bit, do that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And we read books, like I've been reading Narnia with them, but I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to read kids books, but since they want to read them, it's like reliving your childhood as an adult without being a kid adult.
Yes. And I think that's so beautiful because not only is it appropriate in that setting and like virtuous, but you also, like you said, get to relive your childhood through your own children's eyes. And how much more beautiful and fulfilling is that than just grabbing and buying a bunch of toys that sit on your shelf, that you don't let your kids touch because, oh, no, not this action figure. This one's mine. My sister and I, we packed away all of our Barbies for our future children in a box. And I'm like, you could pull off their heads. I don't care. I'm saving them for you. Like, I don't have an
Mhm.
attachment to physical things. They are for my children because they are toys. It's different though if it was like something really fragile and like then it's just not for kids. Like, you know what I mean?
That's actually something I would recommend to any person who is going to be a parent. Look at the stuff on your shelves. If it's something you're not okay with your kids touching and breaking, that shouldn't be in your house, just flat out. I went through, like, I've got some old, like really old video games that just sit on my shelf. I don't really play them anymore. They're really not doing me anything. They're just sitting there. So I went
Yeah.
through and I looked at all the ones that were expensive and I put them all on eBay. It's literally what I did.
Got
I
some money.
literally
Hey
did that
man.
over the last year. I've been doing that. Just anything that I'm like, you know what? That's too expensive to sit on a shelf and I don't play it. So let's get rid of it.
Yeah, and also it helps you not become a hoarder because I think there is a huge problem with, you know, there's a huge problem where our generation is over consuming, and there's an overconsumption crisis where people are just constantly just buying to fill the void in their homes, in their hearts. And sure, they get a little bit of like, dopamine from hitting the buy button or something, and then when it comes, but then, they build the Lego, they do the thing, it sits on the shelf. Then what? Like, it just sits there, nobody's going to play with it. Like, toys were meant to be played with, and everything has a specific purpose. A chair has a specific purpose. Toys have a specific purpose. And it's kind of like the whole you remember Toy Story
Yeah.
and that whole Toy Story thing, and
Andy
how like
passes the toys on. Yeah.
because he doesn't play with them anymore and they have a purpose. And I'm not saying that toys, whatever, are real and etc. I'm just saying that it's like, um when it comes down to it, toys do have a purpose. And that purpose is to bring joy to a child. And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy some of those things. It just means that when it becomes an obsession, it's not healthy.
Here's a good question, actually. And I think you and I will agree on this one, but let's see what you have to say since he asked you. He said his wife and him are infertile. They can't have kids. But they play board games together and read fiction together and stuff like that. Would you consider that kidulting?
No, that's not adulting. That's quality time.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it would be kidulting either. I think you're called to a different vocation if you can't have kids.
Yeah.
I
I
know, actually, for example, I know a couple that they've been struggling with infertility for years, and they've been very, very involved in the church. I'm not going to say too much more details on that, but clearly they've recognized that they have a vocation in the church to help
yeah.
out other couples and other people, and it's been a very fruitful vocation for them, even if they can't have children.
Yeah, that's amazing. God bless them. That's awesome.
So, so he's like, if
Me and
so, we
my
might just
giant
have a
water bottle.
disagreement. But like I said, I don't think that's kidulting. I think that's different. You got
Yeah,
to fill your
that's
time with something. If you can't have kids, there's time to be filled with things like that.
yeah, and I don't think those things, board games in itself, like that's not adulting. That's not
And they're
obsessing
doing it
over
together
together.
too. So it's
Yeah, that's not adulting. Adulting is very selfish, I would say. It's trying to hold on to your adolescence when you need to grow up, basically. Um, it's a lot different and it can come in different forms, but my husband and I always kind of make fun of adults sometimes in the kitchen. We'll go like, but first, coffee or something
hmm.
like, oh, I hate that I said that. Just like because there's memes out there and stuff that do make fun of, certain people who still dress in childish attire and they have like, Pokemon backpacks and stuff, but they're like 32. And yeah. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't consider that to be adulting for sure.
Yeah, I definitely, for a minute while I was in really heavily into the video game market, I would get sent packages that had like swag, right? That's what you call it, swag.
Yeah.
And I'd always be
Swag.
like, I don't like I'm never gonna use this. Why would you send this to me? It never made sense. So like I would get like
Right?
backpacks with like video game characters on. I'm like, I'm not gonna use this. Like, why
Give
would
it
you
to your
send this to
kid.
me? Well,
Keep
or
it for your
they're
children.
just it's cheap though, so it'll break in like 5 minutes.
Ooh, yeah. If it holds the test of 5 kids, then it's a keeper.
Well, yeah, yeah. Like one of the games came with like a punching bag, and I was like, well, this isn't gonna last, but we'll give it a shot. And so it sat in my basement, and of course, it got a hole in it after like 5 minutes. So
Well,
it's just
you
like the
know,
cheap like rubber ones you get at the store, like the like very thin. My kids have a much nicer one now that I bought them off Amazon. It was like $30 and they beat that thing senseless. But
life hack.
it's made for it. So
Punch to
that's
the
the point.
punching bag, not me, kids.
Oh no, they know better than to do that. That's for sure. Wrestling on the
Well, that's
ground, no
good.
problem. Don't punch dad. That's a bad choice.
Yeah. That's fair. I would hope after having a punching bag, they would know the difference.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we're probably gonna get one for outdoors too, just because I'd rather than be outside doing that in the summer than inside doing it in the basement.
Oh,
But
100%. Get some sunshine, like, yeah,
for sure.
tucker them out.
So, what would you say are good hobbies that somebody who's looking to get into like a marriageable relationship? What hobbies would you suggest for young men and young women out there?
there's always
I
a
say
lot of
young men and young women, but I think you and I are both pretty young. How old are you again?
25.
25. Okay, so we're not that far apart. I'm only
No, wait,
32.
20. Yeah, wait. Okay, yeah. There's not that much of an age gap. I don't.
No, it's not as much as you'd think.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think, yeah, we say young adults as if we aren't young adults. We
Well,
still got a few
to be
years.
fair, the young adult group that meets at the more traditional parish in my area, I think theirs goes up to 35. So I'm still a young adult as far as I'm
There you
concerned.
go. See, just keep riding that wave. You know, I'll be doing the same.
Exactly.
Um, I think there's a lot of controversy when it comes to hobbies because people are like, this isn't a real hobby, but that's not a real hobby. And this is, I think hobbies are great when they involve leisure, something that you personally enjoy in moderation or that can be oriented towards God, right? So, this is my personal opinion. People are free to disagree with me, but my personal opinion is good hobbies are activities like hiking, kayaking, rock climbing, getting out in nature in general and doing something physical and productive is great. This could also be painting, writing. It could be maybe you're really into storytelling and you're writing a book. It could be cooking, it could be gardening, it could be so many productive things that don't just help you, but also your community. And if none of those things are your forte, of course, you can paint figurines or something like that. If that is what gives you leisure time and that is something you personally enjoy. But when it comes down to it,
If you're gonna
hobbies
paint
really,
figurines, you should offer to repaint statues at your church.
you guys heard it from Chris. You guys got to do that.
I know
Otherwise, you
some
guys
people
are
that have done
weird.
that, and they like painting. So I was like, yeah, it's a great idea. Just do that because you got all the paints for it from your time doing the miniatures as a young adult. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I didn't even think about that. And I think a lot of our hobbies should be to better ourselves and to help our community and also be leisure. Sometimes a hobby could be fishing, which is pretty leisure. I wouldn't say that necessarily helps a community, but it could help you
It
with
it can
feeding
if you
you.
catch enough fish, I guess,
Ooh, that's kind of hard to do, but it could. It could,
You
if you're
could.
allowed to eat them, unless there's like rules and restrictions. But if you live in Alaska, you're fine. But
Michigan as well. Like we can catch a lot of fish,
oh, that's awesome.
and we got the Great Lakes. So
We're not that lucky here in Illinois, but you do your best. But yeah, I definitely think, you know, um, yeah, it's just crazy when there's so much controversy surrounding hobbies. I'm like, look, do what makes you happy. And as long as it's not obsessive, whatever. I'm not going to tell you how you should live your life exactly X, Y, and Z. I can only tell you my preferences and my opinions. I can't make life decisions for you. And I think a lot of times when we voice our opinions, people take it as fact, like we're trying to push our facts onto them, or like, this is exactly how you should live and X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, no, they're just my opinions. I'm not putting a gun to your head telling you this is how you have to live. I'm just saying that this is personally what I've experienced through dating adult men, and what my girlfriends have also experienced. And I've only known one guy who dated a adult woman, and she never showered because she was always cosplaying. So I guess that's a stereotype. I didn't know that, but apparently that's a
there are
stereotype.
just as many. In my own experience prior to my wife, there are just as many kid-alt women out there as there are kid-alt men.
Yeah. Oh well, then maybe they can find each other then.
Usually the easiest way, at least in my opinion, and this is an opinion that Chris is going to share, not an opinion that is absolute truth, but the quickest way to find out if somebody is, I would say selfish, but also a kid alt, is if they flat out say, I don't want kids. Just, I don't want them. Like, I'm
I
like, okay,
am the
so
baby.
what would be the point of me marrying these people?
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, I am the child. You
Like,
don't
at
get
least be
children.
open to it. Like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna look for that kind of a thing, you gotta at least be open to it.
Yeah. I
Because
completely agree.
otherwise,
And
you're just gonna date people. Like, who cares at that point?
yeah, and I feel like sometimes it doesn't come out either until later. I knew one girl who dated this one guy for almost like 2 years. And it was a little bit long distance for like a year, and then the last year they were closer together. But he disappeared on the weekends. And she was just like, I don't know where he goes or what. So she followed him one day because she asked him, and he was just like, oh, I'm just hanging out with friends or whatever. And I don't suggest following your significant other, but in these circumstances, she felt like he was being shady, tried, didn't get any kind of response from him, so she decided to take matters into her own hands. And he was going to like comic cons and cosplays and stuff like that. And um I don't remember if they broke up or not, but basically she found out that like, yeah, he didn't want kids, and there was like this whole thing. And she just asked like, well, why would you lie to me about that? Like, you could have just told me that you do these things, but because you lied to me about it, it just feels weird now. um I don't know. It's just interesting. It's very, very interesting.
I do want to address this one from Kevin real quick. There is, in my opinion, can you see it on the screen when I pull them up?
Yeah, my microphone's just in the way.
Oh, okay. So there, in my opinion, it's a huge difference between being open to children and being unable to have them.
Yeah.
Because just because you know there's an infertility issue doesn't mean you shouldn't marry that person. But you have to know that going into the marriage, and that doesn't mean that that person says no to kids altogether. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. It's not that I'm saying you must have kids. I'm saying that if you're not open to them, why would you? If you're not open to giving the whole of yourself to the other person, right? I think when somebody says I won't, I don't, I can't, these kinds of things, it's different than I physically am unable to have children.
Yes.
Does that
Because
make sense?
one is a choice, the other is not.
Right, exactly. So
You don't choose to be infertile. Well, I mean,
it,
I guess some people do, but they don't
some well,
intentionally do it.
you don't choose to be naturally infertile.
Correct. Correct. And that's what it comes down to is, you have to have the ability to take the crosses that you're given, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Kevin, it sounds like your whole situation is a little different than what we're talking about. So when we're
Yeah.
addressing this, don't take it like we're talking specifically about your marriage. Does that make sense?
And I think that's an issue that a lot of people have online where they can't separate their situations from what we're talking about. It's a whole other situation where it's kind of like again, not talking about you specifically, Kevin, but main character syndrome, where people can't just see a post for what it is. They always have to put their own spin on it based off of their worldview or what they've experienced. And I have a lot of people where I will state a fact, like if you are, ladies, if you are on birth control, it changes the chemicals in your brain. And if you date a man or get married to a man on birth control, oftentimes if you get off birth control, you're no longer attracted to that man because you're attracted to different hormones. And so that's what also causes a spike in divorce rates.
Mm-hmm.
And I have girls be like, well, I was on birth control and I dated my husband or boyfriend or whatever, and I got off birth control and I didn't feel any different about him. And I'm like, congratulations, you're in the minority and we're not talking about you. There is a majority of women out there and plenty of studies that have proven um, that it does change the chemical balance in your brain, and it
Have
does
you
change
read
who you're attracted to.
have you read the book on that?
Which book?
It's called This Is Your Brain on Birth Control.
No, I've read a bunch of other books though, and
That one
statistics.
is a it's more secular. It's not a Catholic book, but she was doing the rounds on like podcasts and stuff. And actually, on my one of my other podcasts, one where we were reviewing books and that kind of stuff, we read that one. Like three dudes reviewed a book called "This Is Your Brain on Birth Control."
I love
So
it.
it was interesting. But one of the things that doesn't often get noticed is that the birth control doesn't just affect women, because
Yeah,
when
yeah,
women in a workplace are all taking it and they're working with men, it actually lowers the testosterone of the men around them too,
so
which is kind of
awful.
funny because it's like secondhand, what would it be, secondhand hormones, I guess.
It's like
It's like,
secondhand smoke.
yeah, exactly. It's like, I think in like 50 years from now, we'll be talking about that, just like how we talk about secondhand smoke, like these after effects that nobody's like. It's not like the Alex Jones quote where he's like, they're making the frogs gay or whatever. It's
Yeah,
like but it's like that kind of, because the after effects are there and people just aren't talking about it.
yeah. And I mean, there's I think it was in Colorado, maybe the fish are infertile because birth control is getting into the water supply and it's causing the fish to be infertile and everything. And it's yeah, it's It's a mess. It's a mess to say the least. But when it comes to just stating things and then people being like, actually, I'm like, I appreciate that you have a different experience with this. I do. But this obviously was not targeted towards you. You know, and it can be very exhausting online when something clearly is not targeted. Have you seen the bean, what is it called? The bean theory, where this one woman on TikTok posted bean soup and she was like, "So yeah, you add like 17 different types of beans and this and that and that." And
Hmm,
people were like, "What if I don't like beans?" Don't make the soup.
right.
Don't make the soup. You need beans to make the soup. Just don't make the soup.
That's like saying like you watch an entire video about how to make a grilled cheese and you're like, but what if I'm lactose intolerant?
And I
Like then
am.
it's not for you.
Yes.
Like
It's just like I'm
clearly.
offended because I can't have lactose at all. And this person online just posted this about cheese and I can't have cheese, so I'm angry.
Or like you watch a bunch of baking bread channels and you're gluten intolerant or something. It
Yep.
just doesn't make sense. Like, make it make sense.
The bean theory. That's what it's called. And I find it so funny because I bring it up all the time. I mean, I think the main thing is like main character syndrome. Like that's what it
Yeah.
boils down to. But I like bean theory better. Sounds better. I love
Yeah,
beans.
it makes me think of Mr. Bean. That's what it makes me think of. Do you remember
That's
Mr.
fair.
Bean?
I do love Mr. Bean.
Okay. He
Yeah.
was like one of the few advocates for free speech in the UK, and I really appreciated his take on it because it was like, comedy can't be comedy without some free speech.
Fair.
And I
For
do agree
real.
with that.
Yeah, like, I'm sorry, but Mean Girls, White Chicks, those are two of my most favorite movies. Maybe I'm outing myself. Should I have said that? It's fine. I don't care. I don't care. I
We
love
watched
those
that in
two
health
movies.
class in high school.
Really?
Can you believe like they really put on the guy put on Mean Girls in high school, literally. And that was something
I
we
love
watched for like a
that.
straight week. Yeah.
I want to put so many like Mean Girl references in my YouTube videos, but I'm like, I can't because it's not appropriate, but it would fit so well.
Well, I think that there's a good commentary there where like the teen brain is more not in tune with nature, but you're more likely to have a response that would be like what nature would like aggression. Your
Yes.
emotions are more wild. You don't develop that part of the brain that kind of has a handle on that stuff until you get a little bit older, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. It's just just closes a little bit. I think for women it closes at 25.
Yeah, it's something like that. But
Cerebral cortex or something.
yeah, it's more that you train your brain to think more long term than short term.
Oh. Oh, okay.
So like
That makes
the short
sense.
term is the emotional, right? Like you're more reactionary. The long term, you gain that at around your mid 20s, like you were saying. Men, I think it's a little bit older than women. It's not by
Okay.
much, but I have noticed like as I get older, my emotions are not at the front of my my vision all the time anymore. And it's kind of funny to see like because you get less aggressive in general the
Yeah.
older you get. At least men do. I don't know if women do or not, but men do.
Women, we become more petty and behind the back type of thing, I feel like, as opposed to being more like forward aggression. A lot of I remember being in high school and like women would like growl at me and stuff, and I was like, "Ooh, that's weird." But then as they get older, it's like they just stab you in the back instead because they learn that growling at you in public is not socially acceptable. So, yeah, do with that what you will.
I don't think we're selling a one size fits all solution. I think there's obviously going to be so if you have main character syndrome, the idea is that like you apply everything you see to yourself just
Yeah.
immediately. You never not at the exclusion of things don't affect you. You're just literally like walking through life thinking, "Oh, why would this be existing? Why does this exist? Because I would never use it." But it's like but then 300 people are using this thing that you're not going to use. So it's like judging something just based off yourself is I would view that as narcissism or main character syndrome.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't have anything to add to that because it sums it up so well.
Yeah, so the one size fits all works well for like, beanies and hats, not so well for situations in life.
Exactly. And even then, I have a very small head. You'd be surprised. Like, I got a tiny head. So,
Yeah, my wife knits my
mm,
hats, so I don't have to worry about that.
the perfect size. Oh,
Yeah,
that's so
she
sweet.
she does. She measures it and then she does it.
Okay, yeah, I need to knit hats.
Knitting and sewing is a super useful thing that most people don't do anymore.
Yeah, I know. I mean, okay, again, lost hobbies. And not just hobbies, like skills, like lost skills that now people are deeming hobbies because they're lost in a way.
Yeah.
So before it was just a normal thing you knew how to do. Like I can do cross stitch. I can do because I was raised that way. You know, I was raised with the cooking and the cleaning and the stitching and the buttons and I know how to do all of that stuff. But you know, I'm a little rusty here or there, but 90% of the generation these days do not know how to do any of that. They barely even know how to cook because DoorDash is a thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the amount of DoorDash complaints on Reddit has me. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes my like vice is scrolling through people complaining on Reddit because one, I just find that side of the world interesting what they complain about. Because I'm just like, what are the people who have different political beliefs than me complaining about today? And I'm
Yeah.
always just like, this is so dumb. Why are you like? I probably need to do a confession for some of the thoughts I have about these people. But DoorDash is especially funny because you get the weirdest stories. Like, my DoorDash driver picked up my KFC and then drove 4 hours north for some reason. And then they
Huh.
delivered the KFC the next day. And I'm like, that guy got detoured by a date or something. Because, like, why would you drive 4 hours the wrong way?
Yeah. Also, how does that happen? Did he just put it on a train and was like, "Yeah, it's good enough." And then it just went 4 hours
So,
there and 4 hours back.
uh, so I know a few people that I'm not going to out them, but I know a few people that do DoorDash, and they've said, I mean, think about it. It's a job that anyone and their brother can sign up for and do. As long as you
True.
don't have like a record or something, anybody can do it. So I imagine some of the people were not celebrating Easter on 420. They're celebrating a different type of holiday. And
I
those
see.
type of people may be going different directions with your food. That's
Maybe
just
you
a
don't want to eat that.
theory. Maybe not. Well, I mean, if it showed up the next day, I'm not eating it anyways.
But it also comes down to like a spirit of laziness that we're seeing today. I
Yeah.
understood when COVID was a thing or whatever, like sure, whatever. But now people have gotten used to that. They've gotten used
Yeah.
to curbside pickup. They've gotten used to just ordering things online. And so most of this stuff isn't I mean, I don't know if you saw like the whole Chipotle thing where it's like how they skimp on the DoorDash orders and it's like literally like a spoonful of rice and
Hmm.
maybe a couple pieces of chicken and people would get it from DoorDash and then the point is that there's like people don't want to go in person anymore to pick out clothing, to go grocery shopping, to get their own groceries. And my husband and I, we go out all the time to get groceries, like and pick the fruit, be meticulous about it, be like we want a specific type of ripe fruit because if you just send anyone in there to go get it, they're just going to pick whatever. They're not going to waste time because they're
I
on a timestamp.
will say the one nice thing about that type of situation is once you start needing like a church van to transport the kids around,
That's a
it
little
can
different.
be nice to have the Kroger shopper go shop for you.
That's different, but I'm talking about like the college
Because I
student
used to take
or
like five, not five. I have taken all five kids to the store by myself before. I've done that before. But when
that's
it was like two or
awesome.
three kids, yeah, I'd just throw them all in the cart. They'll get everything we need to get. My wife was always like, "Sure, be gone for 3 hours and see you with all the kids later." And I don't have any problem doing that kind of stuff. But we're at a point where not all the kids fit in the cart, and random items get put in the cart when I'm not paying attention. So it's like, does it
Hmm.
save us money to
Sus.
take all the kids into the store?
Yeah, that's a definitely like that's helpful when you have a curbside pickup or a DoorDash for that. And also I think it can be a blessing for like busy moms, you know, and
Hmm.
things who are so exhausted from their newborn or, you know, whatever might be going on that they could just pull up to a curbside and be able to get groceries or something. Like, yeah, that's understandable. But, like, the young couple who are just like, "Oh, I don't wanna go to the store today. I wanna stay and binge watch my Netflix," which is a lot more people than and again, I'm not gonna out anybody, but I do know a lot of young adults like that, and I am just like, "Mm." I mean, I order pizza every now and then through pizza delivery or something like that, but it's not like I never leave my house.
Right. Well, and actually, what made it even worse, this is, again, this is my opinion because the bishop allowed it, so I can't really complain. But streaming masses, like that is my pet peeve when people think that's good enough. Like if you're sick and you're at home and you still want to get like the prayerful part of the mass in, I could understand, like, okay, I'm gonna turn on the streaming mass while I'm sick.
Yeah,
Sure. Or like somebody who's invalid in a nursing home, and then somebody brings them like I'm not sure how this all works because I've kind of been digging into the Eucharistic extraordinary ministers or whatever, and I'm not so sure I agree with it anymore.
agreed.
But I appreciate the attempt of some of these people trying to bring communion to the people that
Yes.
are in like the nursing homes. I would
Ideally,
prefer a
it would be a
priest or a
priest or
deacon.
deacon.
Yeah, ideally.
You're in good
But
company.
yes. I am one of those ones where like if I have a choice of which line I'm going up for communion in at a Novus Ordo, I'm picking the priest line every time. That's kind of
Mhm.
how I am. I kneel whether
Same.
there's a kneeler or not. I really don't care. But
Yeah. Be
long
bold.
story short, the streaming masses, I think that took the convenience and laziness to a whole new level.
Yeah. It really did. And so many people still do it till this day and think that it counts, but it doesn't because that ran out 2, 3 years ago now. Like a year
At
after
least two or
COVID.
3 years ago.
Yeah, after COVID, the bishops basically got rid of that whole thing, and like you had to, in order to fulfill your obligation, you had to go in person to mass again. But a lot of people just fell off. They were just like, oh, it's been nice not having this obligation, and it's very sad, because churches never should have closed in the first place.
Oh, I agree 100%. There was no point to closing the churches. And in fact, the study that I saw showed that less people got sick going to church than anywhere else. So it's
Hmm.
like, if that's true, and I can't prove it, but the people that did the study made the claim. And anecdotally, I never saw anybody get sick going to church. So
Yeah, exactly. And because if you were sick, you just stay home. Like it's just that's kind of just how
just like
things work
work.
around here.
Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
sick, you're supposed to stay home from work. I mean, really, I mean, like, it all applies the same way, but people have gotten lazy.
Exactly. And with that, also jobs. Like people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, it's so hard to find a job." I'm like, "It's hard to find good workers."
Yeah.
Like that's just the truth.
There were some businesses that had like like plenty of business to stay open, but not enough workers.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
it's like the saddest thing is like I've seen some like family local businesses, people that like it's been in their family for years, and they've got plenty of work to stay open, and they
Mhm.
just can't keep up with the work. Period. 'Cause they don't have they don't have good workers, and they don't have
Yeah.
enough of them. So like the few good workers that hold it all together, like they're holding the weight of the business on their shoulders, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
It's just it's not fair to the rest of the people, and they don't have enough good people like that to keep these businesses afloat.
Yeah. I mean, I knew a business owner. He owned a little like convenience store or something, and he hired someone Gen Z, high school, whatever, and he told him to sweep the back. And no joke, this kid said, "Well, can't you just do it? I'm kind of in the middle of something," and he was playing like Raid Shadow Legend or whatever on his
Oh
phone. And it's
no.
just like, and people will say, "It's so hard to find a job. It's so hard to find a job." I don't doubt that it's hard to find a job, but also the people. I mean, I'm sure there's some very good people out there, but again, the majority are, at least who I have met when I was working in retail and service, was I always arrived 15 minutes early. I was in there 5 minutes before I had to clock in. I was at my, cash register in the back grooming dogs or doing whatever I had to do that day. And I stayed sometimes later because the other kids who were my age at that time, and I was probably like 19, 20 maybe, would come in 30 minutes late. And I would have other things to do, other responsibilities, other priorities, but I would be forced to wait for them. And 90% of the time, I would see them walk in and they would just be in the clock in room for like 15 minutes and just on their phones in there. And I'm like, I need to go home. And then they'd come out and be like, thanks, doll. Thanks for covering for me. Have a good day. And that would happen every single time. So I quit. I quit because I was tired of the managers just letting this happen and making me the good worker who arrived on time, was very responsible, who worked in every single area of that store. I was in dog grooming, pet care. I worked at PetSmart, pet care
Okay.
and cash registering and also stocking. So I was also not people shelves. And so I was putting stuff on shelves too in between everything else. And when these other people would come in, they're like, "Oh, could Amber just do it for me?" And then my manager would be like, "Oh yeah, Amber, can you just do this and that?" And and I'd be exhausted. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, either hold your employees accountable or I'm gone. And they never did that. So I left.
Yeah, a buddy of mine has like a food truck empire, we'll call it. And so he
Wow.
basically has like serious work throughout like the spring through the fall.
Hmm.
Um, and if people aren't pulling their weight, he's just like, I'm not bringing you back to the next,
Okay.
we're not, you're just not coming back. So I'll
Yeah.
just find somebody else. And because there's just so many hours involved, it does pay pretty well for the people that do it, especially like the younger, like high school age kids. And so he's like, they don't have the work ethic. Forget it.
Hmm.
Get
Yep.
them out of here.
Exactly. Because otherwise, how will they learn if they're getting paid for not working?
Right.
It's just like you're rewarding bad behavior, basically. And unfortunately, a lot of kids act like animals these days.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to treat them like an animal.
I will say if like somebody's trying to find like their first job as like a 18-year-old and you're like, okay, I want to make money, I want to save some money, I want to have a nest egg for when I want to get married and all that, find a job that has a little bit of skill involved. So
Yeah.
like lifeguarding, you get a skill out of that, you get first aid, you get, you learn how to save people that are drowning, which is super helpful with children. Um,
Yes.
Stuff like that, like you get a skill out of it, and you'll never forget how to do CPR. To this day, I've never forgotten how to do CPR. So like, unless they've changed the method on me, then it is what it is. But I think that's a good thing for people to learn is, or like
Yeah.
doing food business. Like you learn how to prepare. I mean, probably not healthy food, but food.
Food. You can make it
Uh,
healthy.
but find something that you can learn something. Like I think that's something people forget is like you don't have to just pick. You can be picky about the job, but pick a job. Do a job. That's what people
Yeah.
need to do. Learn a job.
Yeah. I mean, I started with Chick-fil-A and then I moved on to pet grooming and then I moved on to like cashiers and stuff like that. But before all of that, I was also a babysitter for like 10 years with a family and I did EMR training on top of like rescue and like search and rescue training. And so we learned how to do IVs, we learned how to do like broken bone stints, we learned how to, or, setting up broken bones and doing all of that stuff, CPR, like you're talking about. And we would be in wilderness survival. So I have wilderness survival skills. I know how to make chicken nuggets and I can save you if you're choking.
There you go. Heimlich maneuver or otherwise. Yeah.
Depends on how you're choking.
'Cause I know they've got some devices that are supposed to like
Never
pulse
liked
out.
those.
No, I don't.
Well,
Yeah, they're kind of gross.
I guess you have to be careful these days though. You never know what people have. So it's like, you
As
don't want to
long
put
as
like
no
your
one
lips on somebody
well, yeah,
else's.
I wouldn't do that, but as long as they wouldn't expect me to perform like a tracheotomy, because I can't do that.
It's hard. It's hard. It's gross, but it is doable with a
Yeah.
pen.
I have seen like a video showing it, and I was like, nope. They're gonna call a medical professional in. I am not doing that.
It's disgusting because it's like right here, and then
Oh
you have to
yeah.
cut a. I remember there was a reason why I didn't finish EMR training. Can't do blood. I mean, I can do blood, but I can't do blood. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Like
Like
communion wine, the blood of Jesus, totally fine.
exactly.
The blood
But
coming
this,
out of other people, not so much.
especially an artery.
Yeah,
So I
exactly. I
didn't finish,
understand.
but wilderness survival I did great in. That was fine.
I've
Survived
got
like
a
3 days.
couple of how to survive in the wilderness books just in case. Got a
You
few of
never
those.
know.
Yeah.
It's good to know, and I also enjoy, it's just good to know how to build a shelter and how to find water and how to catch food with literally nothing. Like you only have your bare hands and maybe a rock.
I will say if you have the ability to have a rain barrel and a good filter for water,
Mhm.
definitely something you should consider doing.
Yes, and make sure that mosquitoes can't get into the rain barrel.
Well, even if they can, get a good filter.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
point. Like you don't drink it right out of the rain barrel. If you're drinking right out of the rain barrel,
delicious.
you might get sick.
Just
Maybe a
I
lot.
mean, would I though? Like, what's the ratio of drinking barrel water that's stagnant?
Well, I mean, you get the tablets that like they do have tablets that my pop filter decided to fall. There we go. Oh,
No. Oh,
I think we're good. I think we're good.
oh.
Okay. There is like these tablets. I think they're like chlorine based. You can drop them in. You need so
Mm,
many per gallon of water or something
I
like
love
that.
drinking chlorine.
Yeah. Well, I've got when we moved out to where we're at now, we got well water, and I love having well water because I have the most control over how my water tastes.
That's fair because you can change it based off of the
Yep.
well, right? Yeah. I
The
know you have to
well,
get
the
it.
filter, if you want to do
Mm.
like a reverse osmosis, you have a lot of control over how your water tastes.
I heard that you have to get it tested what like every 6 months or something or every year.
No, you don't have to do that.
Oh, okay.
You need to somebody in your area should get tested every year at least.
Okay.
So like
But
if it
if you are good, then the other person's good.
as long as you're drawing from the same well, you really shouldn't need to test more than like maybe once a year.
Oh, okay. Do you guys ever run into problems of like running out of water?
Nope. No, not where we live anyway. The
Cool.
water table's pretty nice in our area, and biggest issue I run into is just full of iron, just full of iron.
I
So
mean, you won't be
we got a
anemic.
serious water soft. Yeah, well, I always joke around with that, but my with my wife because she's had some anemia issues over the years, and she's like, it doesn't work that way, and I'm like, I know.
Yeah, but iron buildup can be one of the hardest to get rid of. Like
Baking
that's
soda and
hard.
vinegar.
Oh, never mind. All
Yeah,
right, don't
actually,
listen to me. I don't know.
the hardest part with well water is actually if you have electronics near your water sources, it can get like corrosion and stuff.
Hmm. N- That makes a lot of sense.
So I took apart actually this has nothing to do with Catholicism any of that, but I've actually because I'm an engineer, I've taken apart entirely from like down to parts a water softener and then put it all the way back together, and
Sounds
it
like an
works
engineer.
great.
Mechanical?
So nope, electrical.
Electrical?
Yeah,
My
I've
dad was an
replaced some
electrical
motors
engineer.
and was he
Yeah.
nice?
But yeah, I
Probably
think if you know
good.
how to work it, then, if you know the insides outs of the machine, you know what it does and how it works, which is good.
Yeah, it had a lot of like buildup of just random junk. So I took
Gross.
alcohol wipes and cleaned everything up really nicely, and I'm not touching it again unless it breaks again. then,
Yeah,
then we'll
exactly.
then we'll look
Because
at
it's
it
like
because
you don't want to have to do that.
no,
It's
it
a
was
long
not
process, I'm
fun.
sure.
No, and the other thing that you have to have is a tank that has like water pressure to it. So like you can either have like a pump that's on demand, so like as soon as it knows that water needs to come, it starts pumping, or you can get
Okay.
what's called a water pressure tank, and that keeps the pressure charged at all the sinks. And then if it dips below a certain
Oh.
pressure, it'll pump more water into the tank.
Is it cheaper to have well water?
Yes and no. Depends on how much water you use because the electricity is what you got to worry about then.
Oh, okay. I see. I love that this turned into a well water podcast. Yes. You guys are
Well,
learning
water is
so much
great,
about
okay?
water.
My theory is that we're having a lot less chemicals than city water people are right now.
That's valid. We're gonna get like when we move into our new apartment, we are getting like water filters upon water filters for the
I mean,
shower, for the sink, for the
what you
bathtub.
the only thing you really need if you have city water, I would get something like a reverse osmosis, and that would be it for
Okay.
drinking. I don't think I mean, unless you're worried about like chemicals in your hair, maybe like the chlorine. I'm not sure if it's gonna do much because I mean, city water it has a little bit of chlorine in it, but then there's like the fluoride and all that stuff too. So I don't know.
Depends, I guess. But I would probably just get I don't know, maybe like a Brita or something or whatever it's called, zero
Britas are
water.
great, but they're not gonna take like they're gonna take everything out. Let's put it that way. Like
So sad.
the
I'm just gonna
the
get
best
poisoned.
the best thing you could probably get would be like I said, like a reverse osmosis. They're nice machines. They sit under your sink. I don't know if you've got one or not, but
I don't think so, but I think I've heard of them though.
there's like they're like three filters. You only have to replace them like twice a year or something. A couple of my
Oh,
friends
okay.
have them. Um, they're pretty nice, but if you got well water, it's not as necessary in my opinion.
Right, because you guys can
Okay,
control that
off
more
of the water.
easily.
Unless you want to talk about holy water at this point.
I mean, I
I didn't
could.
realize. So I didn't realize this is a funny thing. Like up until like I'm not gonna say how old I was, but I was definitely an adult when I realized that holy water required some kind of salt in it.
Really? Oh, that's
Yes, and it was.
exercised water.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right. Because I saw
Holy
somebody
water
posted
just means a
like
prayer.
I thought it needed a little bit of salt. Could be wrong about that.
Mm-mm. No, you can literally bring bottles of water and a priest will just bless them, and that's holy
It's a
water.
different kind of. Go ahead.
Yeah, exercised water is where you put exercised salt into holy water, and that creates like a powerhouse of prayers and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah,
Because I
no
somebody
salt's
had posted
necessary.
a picture of their little uh water font for their house, and there was salt in it, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's because it's holy water," and I'm like, "What? They need
Exercised
salt in
water.
the so it must be, yeah." And I only learned recently there's a bunch of different kinds of holy water because I listened to a podcast with Father Ripperger in it, and he was talking about
Hmm.
like there's like six different kinds of holy water, and I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, because there's the Epiphany water.
Yeah.
There's so many. It's crazy.
What is like something Catholic that you've discovered recently that you were like, "What? I've been living like thinking this the wrong way like most of my life." Is there anything that you've learned?
Um, I think everything, to be honest, because I was, I don't really talk about it, but I was raised sedevacantist in some ways when I got a little bit older. And so I was very confused about just like everything. So from the time I was like 11 to like 13 maybe I was sedevacantist, and so I was just confused about everything, to be honest. And when I came back into my faith, I really did dive a lot more into my um
Wait, so like your family was and you didn't realize it, or
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, basically. And so I was just so confused because I thought every like Mary was a part of the Trinity, and there was like a lot of weird stuff, very culty. Um but I will say, coming back into my faith, I was just like
You undid a lot of
rediscovering it.
that.
Yeah, and I had to rediscover a lot of things and realize that this is real, this is not. This is true, this is false. They might look similar, but there are major differences. Because I always thought that that was Catholicism, because that's basically what I was taught. It was to, like, this is the true Catholicism. This is real Catholicism. Um, and then when I reverted back into my faith, I was just like, no, this doesn't feel anything like that. And so yeah, it was crazy. But I would say probably everything. I had to relearn everything, really, from like the ground up. So,
I don't know what would be worse, growing up almost past traditional, like what it sounds like you had going on, where it's like
mhm,
things get a little the set of a contest mindset,
yeah,
or like mine where it's like my dad doesn't practice anything. Like he's not Catholic. I mean, he was raised Catholic, but he's not. He does like,
two
you know what I mean?
extremes. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
he's like
virtue in the
a
middle.
skeptic. He's like a skeptic of some sort, I would
Mhm.
say, because he doesn't. He's like, I don't want to pick a religion. I don't necessarily subscribe to anything. And I'm like, okay, whatever, Dad.
Yeah.
Um, and then so my mom had to pick up the pieces the best she could, and usually that results in most of the kids not sticking around with their faith.
Yeah. Unfortunately, 79% of children will not continue the faith if the father is not devout.
Exactly. So out of the four kids, I'm the only one who attends any kind of church whatsoever. So
Okay. But at least, you're setting an example for everybody else. So that's
that
good.
is the goal. Yeah.
Yes.
That is the goal.
It's
And I do
hard.
have conversations with my dad, even if they're not comfortable.
Yeah, which is important because you got to be able to, if you can have those conversations, those are helpful, because whether you see the fruits of them or not yet, um, you never know how it's impacting or planting a seed.
I'm curious if that's true or not.
I don't know. I feel like because I'm gonna have to ask my exorcist friends. I don't know.
So I was originally, when I was baptized by an exorcist priest, actually.
That's
So I'd be
awesome.
curious. I'd be curious what his take is on that, because he's like 85 now. He's pretty old.
Just hit him up.
Um,
Just be like, hey, if
I want to
if
bring him on this podcast, but I'm like, I probably have to go to him because he's older now, you know. So like I have to
right.
drive the laptop 6 hours north of me, and
the camera
Got to
and
plan ahead. It's like one of those things was like if I have the opportunity to do it, I'm going to, but
yeah.
I'm not making any promises that it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to plan those things out, especially with everybody's schedule being different and having 5 children.
Yeah. Oh, that brings me to another point since you're talking about the state of a contest thing.
Mhm.
Um, we should talk about our dear and departed previous Pope Francis.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I was so sad. I mean, it was so sudden, and I think, though, there's a lot of peace knowing, like, leading up to his death, knowing the rainbow over the hospital, um, just, praying for the repose of his soul in general, and knowing that he was the first pope to be exposed to the online world in the way he was, and to
Hmm.
have basically every aspect of his life blasted on social media. And like blasted, I just mean in general, like just being put out there for everyone to see. Whereas before, I don't know, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, people didn't know when the Pope sneezed. They didn't know what he had for breakfast or where he was on the weekends. Sometimes there were photos, maybe, that came out in the paper or on a news article here or there. But now it's just like, it's crazy the vulgar and vile things people have put out there about the Pope, and it's demons manifesting. Like, truly, I do believe that. And while I didn't agree with him on everything, I don't think you can agree with someone on everything. That's not possible unless, it's Jesus Christ, of course. But even then, many people disagree with him. We still need to have respect.
Sadly.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like we still need to have respect for the Pope's, where the Pope's, being the vicar of Christ, and the seat which he sat upon, being the Pope, the leader of the church, and whether or not you agree with him, he does not deserve the slander and hate and vile things said about him. And I hope that these people don't get the same judgment that they're dishing out on the Pope, because you will be judged by how you judge.
The opinion, the only thing I would add to that is like you said, the level of scrutiny that Pope Francis was under was, I think, far greater than any pope
Hmm.
previously, only because so much of it was documented.
Yes.
I would be curious if like JP2 was under that amount of scrutiny, what people would think of, Pope John
Yeah,
Paul II.
because
Because
there were
he,
issues with the
right,
Quran.
the kissing of the Quran. I know that was a respect thing about the country and not a religious thing, which
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense, but it still feels wrong to do something like that.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there were scandals throughout the entire church. Pope Francis is not the worst pope. There was that pope that literally dug up his dead predecessor and
Put him
put him
on, yeah,
on.
on trial. I remember hearing, I was
Like,
like,
and
you got to
y'all
be
are
kidding me.
ripping y'all are ripping on this 90, 89 something year old man who's literally just trying to give mercy to the world. And yeah, again, you might not agree with him completely, but you can't also bash him like this. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just it's something.
it's just crazy. And I just feel so bad for him. So definitely pray and go to mass for him, and, offer up some sacrifices for him too.
All right, I'm gonna throw this one up on the screen, and I'll let you decide if you want to talk about this or not. See what you think. This is from somebody on Twitter.
Wifely submission. I mean, here okay. Yes, I
It's
will
kind of a
talk.
weird way to say it, but I understand.
Yes. I think it depends on here's the hard thing about social media. It depends on what they define as wifely submission, because my definition is in the Bible. It's I am um well, I try to be a Proverbs 31 woman. I don't always succeed, but I do my best. I submit to my husband because my husband is the head of the household. So at the end of the day, he has final say, but there is a mutual respect between my husband and myself. And wifely submission does not mean I am below my husband. I am not walking behind him, but I'm also not walking in front of him. I'm walking beside him. And so I go to him for counsel because I know that he wants what's best for me, and his advice truly is good and rooted in God. And so if one day he told me, like, the ministry is not being fruitful anymore, like, we need to reevaluate, it's taking a toll on our marriage, I would 100% respect that and be like, I understand. let's see what we can do about that. And if it needs to go, it needs to go, because my vocation comes first. And my husband does what a man is called to do, which is to lay down his life, whether that's sacrificing, now, or physically actually having to lay down his life one day. It's like he understands that task. He understands that that is his duty. And yes, he is the head, but I am the neck and the shoulders, that kind of also help with steering the ship. And he always comes to me when we're trying to decide something. Um, it's very much so mutual respect and love, and just willing the good of the other. We never view each other as the enemy. We never view each other as the problem. We are always facing the problem together. And I don't know if this is answering the question at all, but the point is that I know my husband has what like he has my best interest at heart. And so if he says something, I listen. And if I genuinely disagree because I feel like it's coming from um he didn't understand me properly, or he didn't understand the situation, I will bring that up to him, and I will be like, "Hey, I just think that maybe this might be the situation, and maybe you just didn't understand that, or something." But I'm never like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. Can't believe you want me to like blah blah blah." I'm always just like, "Okay, like let's try and work that out and try and figure out how to accomplish that." I just know that he wants what's best for me, so I'm always open to listening to him. I don't have any, you
I
know.
think it's actually something that people don't talk about a lot, is like everybody wants to talk about wifely submission, but nobody
Mhm.
wants to talk about how the expectation is that he will put his family, he'll put himself in front of a bullet for his family, like Jesus did with the cross.
Yeah.
And the expectation is that above everything else, they will lay their life down in the line for the family. And if a man is rooted that way, then he's got the best interest of his family in mind, and he will do everything he can to to love his wife and his children. And the way you do that is by being like Jesus.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I it's really hard because I have a lot of girlfriends who say like, "Oh, my husband judges me for this or that," or the other thing, and I'm like, "First of all, you married him. So you still have a responsibility to him. And at the same time, he also has that responsibility to you to not abuse his power." And I know many people today, many men who have been led astray by maybe trad communities, maybe the facade of what true masculinity looks like, but they absolutely destroy these very, very sweet, very innocent women. They have anger issues, they're addicted to pornography or whatever, and they take it out on these women with the facade that they are these great, holy, virtuous men. And I've seen it time and time again. I was in that situation myself, and I still struggle with a lot of the situations that I'm going, like a lot of what happened. Um, but it was something that I realized was not only my experience, but was so many other women's experience, where they dated a guy who on the outside was very virtuous, very noble, chivalrous, etc. And then the more you got to know him, he became physically abusive. He was always angry. And, you know, you don't understand it, I guess. And I was in a relationship with someone like that for 3 months, and it totally destroyed me. I was down like an extra 30 pounds. I was only 100 pounds, wasn't allowed to order at the restaurant myself. I had to eat off of his plate. I couldn't eat more. I had to bike 10 miles before he would take me on a date because I was too fat. Um, so,
Yeah,
anyways, I'm
that's not healthy at
125
all.
pounds. So I don't know. But yeah, and so I know a lot of girls end up in relationships with those guys, and they get confused, and the guys it's just I don't know where I'm going with this. The point
So
is,
I guess the question, I think that he keeps bringing this up, but basically the idea that I've heard is, if the family is not aligned to the vision of the bridegroom and the bride that
yeah.
Jesus laid out for us, then something needs to be worked on in that relationship in
Yeah.
general, because you should be aligning to the ideal, not try like this question to me, like the women nagging men favor escapism. It's like, if you're not aligned going into the marriage, you shouldn't necessarily expect that it's going to change without some work.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I think a
things are
lot of
magnified in
people,
marriage.
they absolutely are. And if you don't have a good partner in marriage, it's not going to get fixed. That's why you
Yep.
have to be selective. That's why, like, for example, Father Mike Schmidt says, don't date to marry non-Catholics unless you absolutely have to.
Mhm.
If you don't share a foundation with the person you're dating or potentially marrying, why pursue that?
Yeah.
Unless you like are already in that relationship and you're stuck in it and you need to make that work. If you're already married and you come to the church, then figure it out. But you got to do it together.
Yeah. Exactly, and I think, it also just comes down to what side you're on, because I see a lot of men bashing women for women's behavior, and I'm just like, "What's the point?" It's like, women are like that, okay, if every woman's like that, so what? And one of my good guy friends, I won't out him because I don't want him to get dragged for that, but he basically said, "Men, everything is your fault, and you need I mean, not in that way, but you know what I mean, like, you have to take accountability. You have to be the man, and even if this woman, whatever, screws you over here or there on a date, it should not you shouldn't blame all women for that." You know what I mean? And it can be very eh, when men try to place blame on other people, but especially women, instead of taking accountability for what they did wrong. And I'm not saying women shouldn't do this either. I'm saying women should also take accountability, but men specifically have a leadership role. They are the leaders. They are the ones who are supposed to be like the I don't know if this is coming off the way I want it to. The point is that passing blame onto people is not a masculine trait.
No, it's I would
Blame
agree with that. Definitely not a
yeah.
masculine trait to do that. I do think that there is this cyclical nature of the culture in the United States between what is termed the red pill and feminism.
Mhm.
I think that when those two groups start getting like stronger, they actually feed off each other. Because
Yes.
imagine if you're a feminist and like a man just like screws you over, it just totally leaves you hanging.
Yep.
You're going to be more feminist. And then the red pill guy is going to date the feminist woman who's going to leave him hanging and make it worse. And he's going to get more red pilled. And you're going to end up with these two fighting factions. And that's where we're at right now in this culture is this circular red pill feminism thing. And neither of those things are good for this culture at all.
Agreed.
But they
Yeah, you
drive
said
each
it so
other.
well. Mhm. That's exactly what I meant, because you either get the Andrew Tate people or you get
Blue
the
haired woman screaming at the moon.
yeah, exactly. It's just like, "I'm healing," and I'm like, "No, sweetie, you're having a temper tantrum, and that's not normal." It's not
Yeah,
normal at
that's
all.
those two groups don't realize that they fuel each other. I really don't think they do. And
Yeah.
then the red pill creates feminists, and feminists create red pill men.
Mhm. Yep. Exactly. And it's just a cycle that keeps continuing, and women, we need to have higher standards. We do need to be more picky about who we have children with, you know? Um, and because if we rise to the occasion and we set our standards up, men will have to rise to follow. One of my friends, Braden Sorbo, um, he described it as a mountain, and women are at the top of the mountain, and the men have to scale the mountain in order to be worthy of them. Not women come down to men. Now, obviously, women need to be virtuous and they need to be, you know, whatever. But we are not meant to come down. The men are meant to come up and be worthy of us because we are worthy. And that's not a pride thing. That's not a feminist thing. We have life giving bodies. We need to make sure that the men we date, we marry, we have children with are the men who are going to put our children on the path to heaven and ourselves on the path to heaven. And so I love that analogy that Braden had because his dad is Kevin Sorbo. He's in a lot of
Oh
Christian
yeah, okay,
movies,
okay.
but Braden just converted to the Catholic Church, and he has this great analogy of the mountain, and I'm just like, yeah, like that makes so much sense. And I'm not saying that means women should be narcissists or should be like, "Oh, I'm just like, I'm too good for anybody. That's not the analogy. The analogy is
No.
that women have life-giving qualities and men need to rise to the occasion to be able to meet them, but women also need to hold their standards.
Yeah, and this is actually a good question from Majorian is, do you think women should hold each other accountable more?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think a lot of the times there's that whole like, "Oh, boo," like, "Oh my gosh, he dumped you." Like, "Oh, I can't believe he did that." Like, "Oh, you must be so heartbroken." But then completely ignore all the red flags that she was in the relationship
Yeah.
instead of being like, "Okay, well, he cheated on you, but you were also talking to this other guy, but it's okay when you do it, but not when he does it." I think there's this whole like expectation that you're just supposed to automatically support women if you're a woman. And no, it's like women do things wrong, and there should be other women to call out other women, but in a charitable way nonetheless. Um, but I've had that multiple times before where, my friend has come to me for advice and they're just like, this person's texting me and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, so why are you texting back? Like, sorry, I don't tolerate that. That's stupid. Like, I'm sorry, you're feeding into it. Like, again, the victim mentality, like the whole victimhood thing, like, oh, this is happening to me, but they're also cultivating it.
Yeah.
I see that a lot with women where they're just like, oh, poor me, poor me, poor me. But then they keep putting themselves in the situation. I was that woman. I know exactly what that is. I know the games, I know how they work. And whether they intend to or not, that's not you're not a victim if you keep putting yourself in the same situation over and over again on purpose.
Yeah, if you don't change the environment in which you're dating, like picking men who are like you are who your friends are, right? So you are who you date. So if you're dating the right kind of people, then you're in the place you want to be and you're going to find the right person. But
Yep.
if you're dating people that you don't want to be like or you don't think are going to improve you in a marriage in the future, well then you need to change the environment of your dating, just flat out.
Yep. Exactly. It
Um this is
yeah.
kind of an oddball question. Maybe this will be the last one we take tonight. Um
Yeah.
I don't agree with like I agree and I disagree because I do know that when I think there's a statistic that shows when men cheat in a marriage, they're less likely to leave the marriage than if women cheat in the marriage, just because there's emotional attachment usually on the women's side. But that
Yeah.
doesn't make it less sinful.
Agreed. Sin is sin, and a mortal sin is a mortal sin. Um so it's yeah, if a man cheats, it's not less sinful.
It's
It's
not
it's
less
still a mortal
sinful.
sin.
It's probably less likely to break up the marriage, but it's not less sinful. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, let's not get into Solomon. I don't think he's a good I don't think he's a good ideal for marriage, personally.
No.
He also, corrupted the kingdom of Israel by having so many paganistic wives or whatever. So
Ooh, it's
not so
awkward.
good. Let's see
Yeah.
here. I mean, uh, I mean, technically, you work from home for the most part with your ministry, right?
Mhm.
So I don't think you're outside this idea.
No, I mothers concentrating on household duties should work primarily in the home or in its immediate vicinity. I think women are happier at home with their
My wife
kids.
definitely is.
Yeah,
Some days she's
and
losing her mind, but
it
for the
happens.
most part, she's
5 kids
happier at
will do
home.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that is like our instinct. We want to be home and everything. And currently, we don't have any children at the moment. So this is, helping in a lot of ways where it's like I'm still completing my mission, doing my ministry, and I work inside the home. So, I still get
That's what
all
I'm
of my
saying.
other
I feel like most of what you're able to do is in your home anyways, right?
yeah.
I mean,
I
you do a
mean,
little bit of traveling and speaking and stuff, but
yeah, and I think especially because I'm still able to keep up with my vocational stuff,
right.
like I cook dinner, I do laundry, I do the dishes. My husband obviously helps me. Like it's not like it's all on me at all. He's wonderful like that. Um, but
I
you know,
think the shit like okay, this might be a bit controversial with all the trad people I have in my comments right now,
I'm
but
ready.
like I'm happy to do the dishes from time to time and that kind of stuff. Like I really don't mind doing little things to help my wife here and there.
Yeah. Also, it is the responsibility of the man because the man is the head of the household. So if the wife fails in doing a duty, not fails, that sounds bad, but if she doesn't get to something, the responsibility actually falls to the husband to get it done. Because he is the head, he is the leader, and the wife is a helper. She is meant to help and to help him with these duties and to take care of things, and she has her own vocation, of course, to care for those things. And but it's so weird that it's so controversial to say that actually the responsibilities are primarily on the husband, and the wife is there to help him, because that's why God gave Adam Eve, was as a helper.
And plus, during the young phases of a baby's life, there's a lot of things that once you get married, your wife has to do to take
Hmm.
care of that baby that just men physically cannot do it. And
Yep.
so a lot of times tasks will fall to the husband during those periods of time. And I'm not saying I'm perfect and I was able to fulfill everything my wife does. That is not what I'm saying at all. But I learned a lot of what she does every single day through those periods of time where it was a challenge for me to keep up with those things.
Yeah. And it
And
almost makes you respect each other more in a
it
lot of
does,
ways.
yeah. So anyway, is there anything else that you would want to cover tonight before we call it? Do you have
I
any
can't think
questions
of
for me?
anything.
No?
No, I don't actually. I know we've been DMing. I have lost complete control of my DMs. I have like hundreds of DMs, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll get to this one day, and then another 50 tack on in one day, and I'm like, never
Maybe
mind.
not. I have found that, so I've had a couple different accounts on Twitter over the years. If you are a man on Twitter and you open up your DMs to everyone, automatically porn bots slip in. It's super ridiculous.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
that's
just
so gross.
literally. Yeah, it is. Luckily, the one thing that Twitter did change, which is nice,
Hmm.
is they block those images until you like say, "Oh yeah, I want to see this." I'm like, "No,
Well,
I
that's
don't want to
good.
see this. I
But
really
still, the
don't."
fact that they're even a thing, like, that's so gross.
Okay, this is the last question, I promise.
Okay.
Do you know who Warren Beauty is?
Yes, I love her.
Okay, all
She
right. I
is
wasn't
so
sure.
fabulous. We've had conversations before because I'm like, "Are you aware that we're in a feud right now?" And she was just like, "No." And I was just like, "Huh." And she was like, "Any publicity is good publicity." And I was just like, "Well, that's valid, I guess." And I was
Yeah,
just like, "Let me know if you need anything." And she was like, so now we tag each other sometimes in our mass fits and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I love her. She's great.
well, good. On that note, I do want to thank you for being on here. And if anybody is on my channel that is not subscribed to Amber Rose, do you prefer that I say your full name or just Amber or both?
Amber Rose works perfectly fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Subscribe to Amber Rose's The Religious Hippie channel on YouTube. And check out the rest of her content. There's a lot of good stuff on there if you're learning about the traditional Latin Mass or various things about the faith. She's got a lot of good educational videos. And I
Oh,
think you got some ones
I
that
try.
teach veiling for women too, 'cause some people don't know
Mhm.
what that even looks like.
Yeah,
Um,
I do my best to try and go for the real basics, like just beginner's guides is what I call them. Beginner guides to Catholicism is what I call my series. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
very,
helpful.
very controversial.
Hey man, I warned you. I warned you. I was going to start some controversy. I always do. My just two normal takes. They're just too
And we
reasonable.
we only spent 20 minutes talking about water, so
It's going to be controversial one day. Someone's going to clip that, and it's just going to be controversial.
well, if you enjoyed this conversation, and then in the future, maybe we can talk more about kidults or
Yeah.
whatever strikes your fancy in the future. So,
Yeah, I'm so
um,
down. Thank you so much for having me, Chris. This was great.
absolutely, we'll definitely do it again. So, I again, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna click the button, and hopefully, this thing will actually go faster than it did the first time. But
Oh, well,
uh,
we'll see.
hopefully, you all enjoyed it. I enjoyed conversing. Wow, I can't talk right now. All right, on that note, I'm gonna let it
Conversing.
go.